So thanks for everyone for coming on. Today we're going to be doing a road safety audit for Manley Street at West Street in West Bridgewater. You may have noticed originally when this road safety audit was first set up, we had been planning on doing two road safety audits. One for one for this intersection, also one for Route 106 at Prospect Street. And once we started doing the analysis, taking a look at the crash data for 106 at Prospect, we had noticed that it appeared that an adjacent intersection, a signalized intersection where the market basket is, was having a significant impact on operations at that location. So we went ahead and we did a we talked to MassDOT Safety Division and decided that more analysis and more data was needed for that location. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. So with that will be held at a later date. We apologize for the inconvenience. Usually when we have multiple road safety audits in a community, we usually try to do it in the same day, just in respect for everyone's time. But in this case, more data analysis was needed for that location. So that'll be forthcoming, likely in later towards the end of August or September. With that, so today, like I said, we're going to be focusing on Manley at West Street. And on your screen is an agenda, and I'll before we really get started, I'll just introduce ourselves. So my name is Bill McNulty. I'm a Principal Transportation Planner with Old Colony Planning Council. And just go down the list here. Charlie?
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Charles Kilmer, Assistant Director and Transportation Program Manager with Old Colony Planning Council. And just to supplement Bill's welcome, I'd also like to welcome and acknowledge members of the state delegation, State Representative Michelle DuBois, Sean Hamill from Senator Timothy's office. I'd also like to recognize Select Board Member Meredith Anderson from the town of West Bridgewater, and the many professionals from the MassDOT team. We certainly appreciate and welcome all of your participation and consider ourselves fortunate to be able to work with such a dedicated professional as you all on this call today.
Thanks, Charlie. Well said. Appreciate that. I think, like I said, like Charlie said, welcome our representatives and our delegation. Very happy to have you here. So continue to go down the list and let everyone introduce themselves. So Ko Chang.
This is Go Chang Lee. I'm the Principal Transportation Planner with OCPC.
Thank you. Kyle.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kyle Mowat, Senior Transportation Planner here at OCPC.
Thank you, Kyle. Sean, who appears on your screen at live feed from Manley at West.
Yes, thank you, Bill. My name is Sean Bailey. I'm also a Senior Transportation Planner here at Old Colony. And I will be, as Bill said, I will be providing the live feed. And if anybody has any questions on anything here at the intersection, please state them and I will provide a video feed of that.
Thanks, Sean. Ray?
Thank you, Bill. I'm Ray Garino. I'm also a Principal Transportation Planner with Old Colony Planning Council. And I'd just like to remind everyone we are recording this webinar, this road safety audit, and we'll have it available. We'll have the recordings available later. And if you can possibly put next to your name agency that you represent, that would help us also. So thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Sean Anderson.
Sean Anderson, the Assistant Director of the West Bridgewater DPW.
Thanks, Sean. Chris.
Chris Shanatelli, Director of DPW in West Bridgewater.
Thank you. Mary.
Hi, I'm a West Bridgewater Selectman.
Thank you. Glad to have you here. Anna Phil.
Hi, everyone. Anna Phil with Mass DOT Traffic and Safety.
Thank you, Anna. Is it Ale or Ale?
Yeah, Ala.
Ale, okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you. Ala Consitis, Mass DOT District 5 Traffic.
Thank you. Welcome. Bianca.
Bianca Marshall, District 5 Traffic with MassDOT.
Thank you. Dakota.
Good afternoon, Dakota Del Senor, Mass DOT Traffic and Safety Section.
Thank you. Sean Hanwell. I know you introduced earlier, but
Hi, everyone. I'm Sean Hanwell. I'm a legislative aide in Senator Timmelty's office, and thank you so much for having us.
thank you. Glad to have you here. And Michelle, I know you said hi already, but I'd like to introduce yourself again.
Happy to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Let's see, Lauren.
Hi, Lauren McNaughton, MassDOT District 5 Traffic Intern.
Thank you. Welcome. And Jason.
Hi, Jason Walters, MassDOT District 5 Projects.
Thank you. Is there anyone on the list that I missed?
Hi, I'm Jane. I'm a traffic intern for Mass DOT District 5.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, I think we got everyone. So thanks everyone again for joining. So on your screen, you just see a kind of background on where this project originated from. So this is a project that's in our federal fiscal year 2021 Unified Planning Work Program. Multiple road safety audits at multiple locations throughout the region. This is a program that we created starting this year to look at high crash locations in our region that we identified through multiple ways. We first, our own internal safety management system. Every year we monitor intersections in our region. We evaluate them based on a variety of criteria and rank them based on equivalent of property damage only value. And that gives us an idea of hazard level at these locations, and gives us an idea on what locations in the communities are experiencing a higher hazard level than others. And it helps us target our planning efforts to ultimately achieve our safety planning targets, performance targets for safety planning, which is ultimately to reduce injuries and fatalities on the roadway network. That's always our goal. So we came up with a list. Then we reached out to the communities and solicited their input on which locations were important to them, because sometimes, not everything appears on the list. Sometimes a safety issue might be lurking in the background, and we've had the opportunity to add locations based on that. It's been a very successful program, so successful that we're happy to be rolling it out again in the next federal fiscal year, the next work program. So we'll be doing many more locations next year. It's been a collaborative effort with the communities, our legislature, MassDOT, our public safety officials, and the ultimate objective of these road safety audits is to identify any safety issues, obvious safety issues that we see there, either through analysis of the crash records or just physically being out there. Traditionally, road safety audit, we are, physically out there. Unfortunately, the age that we live in, we've had to do these virtually, which is, it's worked out fairly well, but we do wish we could be out there, and hopefully we'll be out there again sometime in the not too distant future. But so to identify any safety issues, and then identify potential safety improvements, and those can be low cost improvements that can be implemented relatively quickly. It's like signage or striping, or they can be bigger ticket items, if you will, signalization or a roundabout, that sort of thing. So everything's on the table today. There's no wrong answer. So we're just looking for collaborative input into this. So this shows you where the location is in relation to West Bridgewater. I think everyone's very familiar with this. So that yellow star is the location of the intersection. Manley Street runs north to south. It's a significant industrial roadway that parallels Route 24. A lot of trucking routes. A lot of trucking facilities along that corridor, and you'll see in a moment, it does have a very high percentage of heavy vehicle traffic. West Street runs basically southeast to northwest, more or less parallels Route 106, ultimately connects to Route 138 in Easton. And so it does create that connection between Route 106 and Route 138. This is a little bit more zoomed in location, zoomed in view. So you can see, again, West Street running across your screen, west to east, Manley north to south. It is a four-way stop intersection. It's fairly wide, fairly wide turning radii on the corners. As I mentioned, there is a lot of truck traffic through this corridor. So I think those corners are designed like that on purpose, although we did note that West Street is posted as a heavy vehicle exclusion with weight limits on that roadway. So I don't know how many trucks would actually be making those turns. Trucks should presumably be staying on Manley Street and traveling straight through. So some background. So Manley Street, 2018, the average daily traffic was about 9,200. The 85th percentile speed was 48 miles per hour, which, again, pretty high speed, although not necessarily speeding. South of the intersection, coming northbound, the speed limit is 50 miles per hour. It does drop down to 25 right before the intersection. And then southbound, it's 45 miles per hour. And again, dropping down to 25 miles per hour just as you approach the intersection. As I mentioned, it has a very high percentage of heavy vehicles. Nearly 20% of the 20% of the vehicles using this roadway are heavy vehicles. And looking at the zoning and land use along Manley, that's not too surprising. It is a urban minor arterial, and it's under the jurisdiction of the town of West Bridgewater. West Street, so West Street carries much less traffic than Manley. You can see that in 2019, the 85th, the average daily traffic was 4,700 vehicles per weekday, I should say. The 85th percentile speed was 43 miles per hour. The roadway does have a posted speed limit of 35, so that's a little bit high in relation to the posted speed limit. The heavy vehicle percentage on West Street is nearly 12%, which, like I mentioned, it does have a weight does have weight restrictions and a truck exclusion. So it's a little bit high, but then again, if heavy vehicles have purpose on a roadway, such as traveling to any of those businesses on Manley Street, they are entitled to use that roadway. And it is a major collector, and it's under the jurisdiction of the town of West Bridgewater. To this point, are there any questions before we get into the crash analysis?
Yeah, can I go back to, we also have to keep in mind with JP Noonan up there, they also have trucks coming in and out of there of all sorts. They have a place that they fuel up with a lot of people, a lot of businesses with the trucks that go to fuel up. They usually come in through the Manley Street extension and take that left onto West Street. They're not supposed to go on or over the culvert on the other side heading out to East Street. So when you were saying that most of them are pretty much on Manley Street, there is quite a bit during the afternoon and in the mornings that do travel through that section of West Street to JP Noonan.
Okay. It's good to know.
Hey, Bill, I just have a quick question.
Yep.
Thanks so much. I'll lower my, I don't know how to lower, I'll figure out how to lower my hand later.
It's okay.
Can you give any guidance or advice as to what the town of West Bridgewater should do, or what they could do in order to either increase West Street for more weight or to decrease the number of trucks that are going down there? I understand what you said is if somebody has work to do in that area, they have every right to use the street. But if you're seeing, it seems like 20% is a kind of high percent if the town has a weight restriction. So I'm just wondering, how do you link up a town saying we want you to do X and it not happening? And what are their solutions for that? Or is that even a problem? Should they change the weight limit on West Street to be heavier? I don't know. I'm asking you.
It's a good question. I don't know the specifics of the conditions of the culvert. You know, I know that's the main reason for the weight restriction there, to kind of protect that culvert. And you know, we can certainly work with the town to, you know, if there's an issue there, if that culvert is, if there are structural issues with that culvert, then we can certainly work with the town to kind of brainstorm ideas how to further limit truck traffic.
Can I ask Sean if there are any issues with the culvert and when the last time you redid it was?
Mass DOT goes out through the town. Every 2 years, those get updates and all that, and we get reports on those. I don't have it in with me, but within the last year and a half, I'm pretty sure that as of right now, everything looks good and looks good on that. The heavy traffic stays just east of that and goes up Manley Street. It's just the other stuff coming from Easton. The people who come in to fuel up, they usually come off of Turnpike Street. But as of right now, there's no really issues with that culvert.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. It's a good question. And I should note too that, you know, just that percentage that's a percentage of everything that's being recorded as a heavy vehicle. So some vehicles are being classified as heavy vehicle, but certainly wouldn't have major impact on the culvert, such as like a landscape vehicle with a trailer with landscape equipment in the back. Usually our boxes pick those up as heavy vehicles based on the number of axles, but something like that, it's not gonna, it's gonna be well under the weight restriction. So that's something to keep in mind too. Though that 11.5% of heavy vehicles, not all of those vehicles are overweight. Okay, thank you. So the next few slides are just some photographs that were taken, that we took out there. Again, you know, it's, as I mentioned, you know, fairly wide intersection, a lot of pavement. You can see, you know, this was taken in the middle of the day, and there is, you know, outside of peak hours, and there is not a lot of congestion, but there, you know, there's certainly queuing at those stop signs at multiple hours of the day. And again, another view of the intersection coming up on approach. So these next slides get into the crash analysis. So the West Bridgewater Police Department provided us with crash reports where they gave us collision diagrams on how these crashes occurred. And so using that, we were able to put together this collision diagram to kind of sketch out how crashes occur here. So in that 4-year history from 2017 through 2020, there were a total of 20 crashes here. it's a little high. It's not a crash cluster, but it, you know, in relation to the town of West Bridgewater, it is fairly high. 20 crashes for that for a 4-year time period. 9 of those had injuries. So the crashes that are occurring here tend to be a little more serious than crashes. So that's almost 50% on average. You know, we usually see about 30% of crashes at a typical intersection resulting in injury. So runs a little bit high. The southbound and eastbound approaches. So coming from the north, coming from Brockton, and then coming from the west, coming from Easton, those approaches were involved in collisions much more frequently than the other intersections, but overall the crash pattern is fairly spread out. There's not a really predominant type of collision happening here. Just like you said, that southbound and eastbound approaches tend to be a little higher than the others. So the next couple slides, just some stats that were calculated based on those crash reports that we received. Time of year, you know, October and December really jumped out for whatever reason. More crashes occurring in those months than other months. Otherwise, it's fairly spread out. A lot of crashes happening on Tuesdays for whatever reason. Time of day, this is interesting. That very early morning time frame from 6 to 8. That was not by a lot, but that did have a majority of crashes in relation to the other time slots that we looked at. So a quarter of all crashes occurred in that time slot. So that's something to keep in mind. It's a little unusual. That's before the well, I was gonna say, yeah, it is a little bit before the morning rush. It's starting to get into the morning rush, but usually we see that peak a little bit later in the day. And the next page is going to show that 20% of the crashes involved dark conditions. So again, a lot of those in that 6 to 8 time frame, those might be coinciding with the October and December crashes where before the sun came up. Not surprising, most of the crashes happening here are angled collisions, vehicles approaching from perpendicular streets. Light conditions, as I mentioned a second ago, 20% of the crashes occurred at nighttime or you know, before daylight or after sunset. Otherwise, the rest of the crashes did occur during the day. Weather doesn't appear to be a major issue here, but 20% of the crashes occur in wet conditions. Otherwise, predominantly dry conditions, crashes occurring here, and driver ages, not really an issue here. It's pretty spread out compared and typical with demographics across the board with other intersections. So nothing really jumps out with age of drivers and crashes occurring here. So that's a kind of a synopsis of the analysis that we did, and you know, again, happy to go back and answer any questions anyone has. But this is the point where we open it up to the group and start identifying issues that we see here, and after we identify issues, then propose potential improvements that can be made here to improve safety. I mean, I certainly have ideas, and I know my colleagues do, but you know, certainly would like to open it up to everyone and give everyone a chance to.
So Michelle raised her hand.
I have a question. Are we seeing any linkages between, like, do you have a graph or information about the, like, are the accidents that are happening involving cars or heavy vehicles? Do you have a breakdown of that so we could see, is it really like the fact because Manley is commercial industrial a lot that the problem is with the heavy vehicles, or maybe is it like people that maybe live in Easton and work in West Bridgewater trying to get home for lunch at 12 o'clock? Because it seemed like a weird thing for me to have those accidents then, but maybe that's commuting time too. Do you have any information about that?
Not offhand at this moment. So it is something that we can look into as we develop the report for this audit. So those crash reports that the police department gave us, just like any crash report the police department fills out, they do make note of the make of the vehicle involved. So we can
I
look at
only
that.
ask because it seems to me that if we do find that it's during commuting time and a lot of them are cars, I assume that you experts would have a different solution than if it was trucks. And I would think with, like, the town could supply more lighting, or the state, or you guys could, I don't know who does that. And maybe the town could definitely have people up there ticketing if it is people that are just trying to get back to Easton for lunch or something like that, just not really paying attention because they're in a rush. But thank you.
Like Bill, just reading, like, reading through the narratives, it does not seem to be majorly truck trailers. Usually the police will indicate if it is, and it seems like it's mostly vehicles, and it seems it's mostly people either failing to stop, or both people do stop and then they both also go. And I can see that happening because the intersection is so large that, you can't really make eye contact with the other driver. So, so even when both people do obey and stop, like, they're unsure who goes first, and then they go at the same time. So that was a lot of those on the narratives happening. So.
Bill,
Yeah, and
also,
Bill,
sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when I was creating the collision diagram and going through the crash reports, I only remember one crash involving a truck. And if I remember correctly from the collision diagram, I believe it was simply just from a tire falling off of a truck and then hitting one or two cars. But from what I remember from going through the crash reports, it was majority vehicles, not heavy trucks.
Yeah, for what little bit I know about when with the accidents up there, we usually we hear them on the scanners and all that, or sometimes we even go up there to those accidents, and a lot of them are just to do with the cars not paying attention or just daydreaming or whatever it was. Very, very little bit with heavy truck traffic and all that. So that helps you out a little bit.
Definitely does. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think that definitely the big pavement, the width of the intersection contributes to a lot of those angled crashes. And as Bill was mentioning, we'll talk about countermeasures later, but because of all the usage of the trucks, we'll need to see if there's if it's possible to tighten up the intersection, or if, because you need to maintain those radii, you can't. But, even if you can't really do it, maybe structurally you could do, add some paint with some hatching so that for the like the automobiles, they could have a little bit more of a delineation, while, the trucks, if they needed to go over those pieces, they could do that. So just to try to get people a little bit closer, because it is quite far where those top bars are. So.
Yeah, and I was also going to mention, so that southbound approach of Manley, I just flipped back to the aerial view. So another issue is Manley does come in to the intersection at not severe, but a little bit of a slight skew, and is also a bit of a vertical curve there as well. Not dramatic, but both of those are just enough to also further kind of challenge the view of drivers making eye contact with those four-way stops. And determining who goes.
Are you guys talking about Manley Street, though, where the stop lines are?
Yeah.
The reason why they're back so far, which you guys probably already know, is because the trucks are making such wide turns. If you put them any closer to the intersection, those trucks will have a harder time trying to make those turns.
Makes sense.
Right, but ultimately, when people are driving, they would just creep forward anyways, right? Because I mean, you can't. Because those photos are for winter, but looking at the vegetation, I would assume that your sight distance is blocked, especially on the northbound and southbound approaches. It looks like you wouldn't be able to really see an approaching vehicle.
To tell you the truth, we actually keep the roadsides cut back up there, and also the mowing, just for that, because at one time we had to cut a big section out. If you're looking on going west, just on the other side of Manley Street towards JP Noonan, we had to cut that all back for visibility. So we actually have that pretty well cut back,
okay.
Even during the summertime and all that.
Okay, good.
One thing that I noticed, there is a dramatic drop in speed limit from both directions. So going north, you go from a 50-mile-per-hour zone to 25 miles per hour coming up on a four-way stop, and then coming from the north, it's 45 miles per hour, dropping down to 25. That's a pretty dramatic drop without any kind of speed taper or anything like that. And I didn't see any reduced speed ahead signs. So that's that might be something to look at. People familiar with that intersection obviously know that four-way stop's coming up, but it's a new driver, if it cruise along at 50 miles per hour, they might not realize that a four-way stop's coming up.
Can I mention something, Bill?
Yep.
I have another intersection in a different part of my district, and it's exactly like you just said. There were major issues that needed to be corrected, but between you guys and the town of Abington, there were some short-term remedies put in around like signs telling them about the different changes upcoming and a stop. So would that be something that you would do, or would that be something that you would put on the town to do, or in the interim until we get this project up and off the ground to ultimately fix the problem? Are you suggesting that this could be like a short-term help to do these types of things?
Yeah, so signage improvements are certainly usually short-term, and it would be be ultimately up to the town to do that. I did note that so the town does have two stop ahead signs on each approach of Manley Street. So that's definitely a plus. It does look like, just casual observation, it looks like some effort has gone into addressing safety at this location. As Sean just mentioned, trimming back the vegetation. I also noticed, on Manley Street, they have slow spray painted on the roadway. So it does look like some effort has been made to mitigate the crash history here and improve safety. So a couple other things that so like I mentioned, they do have those stop ahead signs, which are excellent. The proper sign, the METCD compliance sign with the symbol rather than the actual word stop ahead. You could try putting it on both sides of the street. Sometimes having those signs on both sides of the street gives greater visibility to drivers that's coming up.
I have noticed that on some of our roads that we've put stop signs on both sides, like you were saying, Bill. if we could probably increase the stop signage up there on both sides, that might help out too as well.
Mhm. Yeah, we've had good luck with that. I know we had an intersection in Pembroke where they did that, put it on both sides of the street, and it was just some signage changes, and they saw a dramatic improvement in the crash history. So little things like that certainly do help.
In terms of lighting, is it dark there? Is there any lighting on the intersection?
There is lighting up there and it is wide open, so. Yep.
Okay, because I think 30% were in the dark, so I just didn't know how well lit it was. But if it's not a problem, that's good to know.
Well, when I'm looking at it, I can imagine in the nighttime, I will have to go up there and see it again in person, but I can imagine the nighttime, maybe it would be dark. What would be a solution? How could you even solve that problem if they already have lights on a lot of the poles? And would the state pay for that or would the town? I'm sorry.
I'm just speaking for my behalf. The only thing I could think of up there, if you, with the lighting, increasing the light, just like a lot with the whole town, trying to put LEDs up there in place of the fluorescent and all those that are up there now, the old style. If we could just improve them, maybe with the like you said, with the LEDs and who's going to pay for them exactly.
Yeah, I know that who is the utility in West Bridgewater? Is it National Grid or is it Eversource?
Good, National Grid.
Okay,
Yeah.
So I know in other towns in our region, like I live in Abington, so I'm very familiar with it. National Grid has been upgrading lighting in the town from that traditional fluorescent to LED, and I believe National Grid is paying for that. That's just kind of their own retrofit. It saves energy, which is ultimately why the utility is doing it. But it's also much brighter. There's one street where I live where they went in and replaced all the lights to LED, and holy cow, it made such a huge difference. So yeah, that's something that we can talk to the utility, see if what a timetable is on upgrading existing lighting to LED, because I think that is their long-term goal, to replace all their lighting with LED, again, mostly in the interest of energy conservation.
Actually, I've been looking into that for the last 2.5 years, and we've gotten down to a contact number and all that stuff. And it's pretty much just up to the town itself, to the higher ups to pull the trigger and say yes and go with it and all that, which is a great thing. I'm thinking, but as maybe this right here could maybe a jump start to start that, through the whole town.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it'll be mentioned in the report, and hopefully that does give the town some leverage to help push us along and start that conversion.
And Bill, if I may make a note, just observing the telephone poles at the four corners of the intersection, there are only poles. There are only lights on the northeast and southeast poles. Both poles on the west side of the intersection do not have lights right now.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. It's good to know. And again, those older style lights too. A lot of that light kind of disappears into the ambient environment. They're not really effective at lighting anything really directly below the light. So that's definitely something to we'll mention that in the report.
Is it a problem people recognizing that there is a four-way stop there, because I'm just wondering, especially even with the light, if having those LED around the stop signs might be helpful.
Mhm.
You're absolutely right. We've actually had to deal with those in situations when we have intersections that we make four-way stops. The only thing I don't like about that is they work great. They work on solar and all that. We've had problems. They're very costly to put them all up. And if somebody hits them and gets in an accident, if you don't get the crash report, then the town has to eat that money, and it's about $1,500 to $2,000 to replace those. So also they probably improved them now, but the lighting doesn't really light over a long period of time, maybe 6 months, 7 months. They start to decrease, and there's problems with the board and all that stuff for the recharging system on those. But this was like maybe 7 years ago. Maybe they've improved them and all that, but it's also a costly thing too if the town has to pay for it. We've had accidents up there that hit and runs and all that, and the town's out $1,500 to $2,000. So that's one concern there.
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, in that presentation, it sounded like most of the accidents were occurring between 6 and 8 in the morning during the weekday, and that lighting was an issue. So wouldn't that be what we need to focus on?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, that would definitely be an area that we would want to focus on. Those crashes that are occurring in the dark, whether it's from a lack of lighting or other factors. You know, depending on the time, we'd have to look at the crash reports in more detail. I mean, depending on the time of night, it could be drunk driving, it could be driver fatigue. So it's not always lighting, but it's definitely something that we're going to mention in this report and take a closer look at.
I just had a question, and I think I know the answer, but I want to ask anyway. Looking at the environment around it, it seems that, since it's mostly industrial, there's really not a lot of desire for pedestrian or bicycle activity. But I just wanted to confirm that, that's not something that it would be desirable. And that's with in mind that, when we do these RSA reports, we want to add everything that would be improving safety for the location, even if it's in the short term, there's not, any particular monies assigned for it. We just want to, have a comprehensive list. So then if, at some point it comes up, it can be easily included, and then it's documented in the report. So even if it cannot happen tomorrow or next month, and it's a long term and a high cost investment, it's something that we want to capture here. So that's why I'm just asking if there is a desire maybe in the future, or if there is no desire to have pedestrian or bicycle accommodations at this location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Pass through this intersection several times a day. It's just part of my commute. And I know at lunchtime, I do see a lot of professionals walking. But as far as regular pedestrians and bike routes, there's not a lot of residences along Manley. There are some, but not many.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of say the same thing. I definitely don't see a lot of walking and bicycling there in terms of recreation. I think, as you mentioned, people walking on the lunch breaks, and further south on Manley, there's some food options down on 106, so people could certainly be walking down there for a lunch break or whatever. But as Anna said, we do, when we do a road safety audit, we always mention the sidewalks and bicycle infrastructure, again, even if it's not a immediate need, because we do like to document it, because if at some point these roadways could be up for a major capital project. It would be nice if roadways didn't fall apart and just kind of always in a state of good repair, but the reality is roadways do ultimately have a lifespan, and so at some point both Manley Street and West Street will require major capital improvements. And so in that case, we have this handy little document that we already pointed out. Hey, how about sidewalks, or how about bicycle lanes?
Do you know what the plan might be? I know this is what we're talking about for the future. Are they planning on putting a set of lights there, a blinking light, or a turnabout? Does anybody have an idea? Or I know it's just talk about, but do they have any kind of idea or no?
So there are no design plans right now. So this is just to identify issues and any potential improvements. So signalization is definitely something we can look at if it satisfies the warrants. I believe we did a warrant analysis several years ago. It's so long ago that we'd have to update it, but if it met the warrants for signalization, that's certainly an option. Roundabout is another option. It's volume wise, a roundabout would work great. The only, with such a high percentage of heavy vehicles, sometimes towns kind of steer away from roundabout when there's so much truck traffic. But that's another. I mean, that's a major capital improvement that would be many years of planning and design, but that's definitely a potential improvement as well.
Yes, I was actually going to mention that, Sean, and I'm glad you brought up, because given the expanse of pavement that is there, it seems like you might be able to accommodate maybe there are different levels of roundabouts, and you could maybe do a smaller one instead of a bigger one, depending on your volumes. And clearly, as Bill mentioned, you need to make sure you can accommodate your truck turnings that you need to do that. But a lot of times if you use multiple curb or whatever, you can you can accomplish that. It would be something that would require study and whatnot, but I do think it's a good countermeasure to include, because just of how much space there is, and the fact that it's already a 4-way location. I think that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah, great. Just
yeah, oh, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to add that I know you talked about the LED stop signs, but I know on that, I think it's the southbound approach where the road is curved as on the approach, that there is an alternative. You can actually just put another stop sign on the other side, so you can have 2 stop signs on that approach. And it's reflective, so that might help. And if someone runs it over, you're out of a stop sign, but you're not out of an LED stop sign. It's less expensive. So doubling up on the stop sign on that approach might be helpful for visibility. And the other thing is overhead beacons might also help, like flashing beacons might also help for visibility of the intersection on the approaches. It could be an interim for before you put the roundabout in or before you put signals in.
Mm-hmm.
That all comes down to a cost. Who pays for that, though?
Yeah. Flashing.
Can I ask a question, Bill?
Sure, absolutely.
Isn't this part of the process of getting this intersection on the tip list, and wouldn't the state pay for most of it? Or am I or am I misunderstanding the question in that we're looking at the short-term fixes and who's gonna pay for those?
Yeah, so a big project like signalization or a roundabout, those, more than likely, those are tip projects. I mean, towns always have the option to do it themselves, but most towns aren't in the position to take on that capital cost. So it usually is a tip project. If that was something that the town ultimately wanted to do, yeah, they'd go through the project initiation process, and then it would go to MassDOT project review committee. They'd review it, determine if it's a good feasible project. If it is, they accept it, it gets a number, and then starts moving through the system. But realistically, tip projects, from concepts to completion, realistically, they usually, optimistically, they're 6 or 7 years, sometimes longer.
Could you
So-
envision, the way the administration did a special bridge program and we bonded out all that money for it a few years ago, it's still ongoing. Could you envision the Old Colony Planning requesting through either ARPA money or the coming infrastructure money, the capacity to help towns with these smaller short-term projects that typically they would take on their own budgets, but because of your professional capacities that towns are just strapped and they can't do that. So some kind of targeted, specialized funding for projects like this that typically you wouldn't want to wait 6 years for and are like smaller than full scale renovation?
It's yeah, that'd be for something like that, I'd have to talk to Mary, our executive director, or Charlie, our program manager.
I'll follow up with them, but if you wouldn't mind just mentioning it, because it would be good to come at it from a multiple angles where I can be talking to leadership in the House to ask them to create this type of a smaller grant program for towns. And you guys could be advocating through your channels for something similar. And then when it gets to a point where people are making the decisions, they can start saying, oh, wow, we're hearing this from multiple different angles. Maybe the town could even help write a letter saying that this would be a good way for us to, incentivize towns to be able to afford these types of maintenance issues.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, there have been, there have been grant programs. Thinking specifically, like a few years ago, MassDOT had a Signs and Lines program where grant money was made available to communities for short-term, lower cost projects that could be implemented quickly. I know some of our communities benefited from that. So those type of things are kind of always come along, and we certainly keep an eye on those. In terms of a specific program from assistance from the state, again, that's something we can certainly explore. I would defer to Mary Waldron and Charles Kilmer, my bosses.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I would add that if there was some type of opportunity to have a program, whether it's administered through MassDOT, using the ARPA funds for a grant where a community could apply for one or more intersections, that would also pay for the design cost, because that's one of the kind of hidden costs of these projects. If you go through the tip, it's 80% federal, 20% state, but on a local jurisdiction, the typical 10% cost of the total project would be on the community for doing the design. So if there's a way to provide some economic relief to a community as part of the grant program to provide design funds that would be administered by MassDOT as part of an overarching municipal improvement program, I think that would be helpful. I would note that Manley Street itself was fully reconstructed through the Old Colony Transportation Improvement Program process, probably in the mid-2000s, from basically 106 to the Brockton City line. So this roadway has a fairly long lifespan to go before you're going to be doing a full depth reconstruction But that's not to say you cannot make spot improvements along the way, such as at this intersection. And I would suspect at the time that the engineers were designing Manley Street, they looked at whether or not to signalize this intersection. But as data may have changed, traffic has grown, truck traffic has increased, and there's a increase in crashes. Perhaps that would be one of the opportunities to explore signalization of this intersection.
Thank you, Charlie.
Now that we talk about this and all that, is this something that, like with the signage and all that, is that something that we're gonna have to do right away? Or if that's the case, you're talking about maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 signs. You're probably talking about $1,000 to $1,200. I know it's not much, but I know we have a set budget and all that stuff. Is that something if we put out, is it something that we can maybe get back or just have to wait? Or is all this right here just talking about it now and that's it?
Yeah, so this is again, it's just identifying potential improvements that can be made. It's the timetable is always up to the town on how quickly they want to make these improvements, and with the full acknowledgement that knowing that this isn't obviously the only issue in West Bridgewater. You guys have other locations that are equally important as well. So ideally, obviously everybody would love to make these improvements tomorrow, but that's not the reality of the world that we live in. And so it's we make these recommendations. It's a toolkit that the town can use. That it gives the town options to look at. These are things that have been identified that could improve safety here, but again, the town would ultimately balance that against all the other needs in the town. So everybody understands that this is not the only issue in West Bridgewater, as I mentioned earlier.
No, you're absolutely right on that. That's great. But this is something that maybe we can look into and increase the line item in our budget for this, and we can keep up on it, because like you said, we are discussing it right now, and we do know some of the issues, and we want to make sure safety is the first thing. So if we have to, then it's something that we can prepare for further down the line. Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess the way I would describe it, so the road safety audit, the report, it's basically it's almost like a menu. So a team of planners and engineers have come together, they've looked at it and say, okay, these are the options that can be implemented to improve safety. And so the town just uses that as a toolkit going forward. So they don't have to repeat the process when you are looking at making improvements.
I would note too that the town of West Bridgewater is a complete streets community with a policy prioritization plan and a funded project, if I'm not mistaken. I don't recall if this intersection's on that prioritization plan. So that would be a potential funding source if it is on the prioritization plan.
Charlie, I do not think that it is on the plan.
Okay. Any other? I think we've identified a lot of issues and a lot of potential improvements. Anything else that hasn't been brought up that people would like to bring up?
Yeah, I think that maybe some tree trimming. So on the approaches, so that it looks like the stop signs might be behind trees. I think that should be looked at.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ray. Anything else?
Oh, sorry.
I was just asking if it.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just asking if there's anything else.
Michelle, I was just wondering if you could help us out maybe with the lighting in the West Bridgewater, if you could help us out trying to get the LEDs swapped over. I know it's been a challenge trying to get this taken care of. If there's any way, maybe you can help us out, that'd be great. I'm just putting it out
I
there.
know that I've been talking with Eldon on and off about it, and we were gonna dive into it, and then he had a series of illnesses. But I am in his life. But I'm happy to work with the town and call National Grid and dive in to be a partner on this or whatever else. Thanks. I'll call you. Who's talking right now?
This is Sean Anderson with the West Bridgewater.
Nice, Sean. I will make sure I follow up with you this week, maybe on Thursday.
Great. I got a lot of contact information, all that stuff. And I just, like you said, it's just trying to get it through there and getting this going. That'd be great.
I'm gonna put my cell phone in the chat and maybe we can text or email.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right. So if there's not anything else, so basically, so where we go from here, we're going to develop a report. You know, optimistically, you know, it's 2 weeks. We'd have a draft report sent out to all the stakeholders, and we'd send it out to all the stakeholders, everyone in this meeting, and have a yeah, everyone has a chance to review it. If you know, if we leave anything out that you notice, that would be the opportunity during the review to bring it up and say, hey, what about this? This was mentioned, or if you know, if it hasn't been brought up today, but you know, tomorrow or next week, you think, oh, you know, I should have brought this up. That'd be a good idea. That's also an opportunity to bring that up. So you know, this isn't a closed process. You'll continue on. So my contact information there is on the screen. You can contact me anytime, either email or phone. So I want to thank everyone for coming out today. Definitely, especially thank Representative Dubois. Really appreciate your participation today and your comments. Sean from Senator Timilty's office. Again, thanks again. Your time today, and everyone from West Bridgewater and everyone from MassDOT. We definitely appreciate it. It does make for a more complete, more comprehensive product. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning, this has been a very successful program, and we look forward to continuing to work with the town and with MassDOT and with our legislature. And anyone have any final comments?
Well, I just want to say thank you to all of you guys.
Our pleasure. Thank you. Okay. So again, my contact information is there on the screen. I'm going to be sending this out. I'll be sending out this PowerPoint in a PDF format to all of you. I'll also provide a link with the video where you can watch the video again if you wish, or share it with any of your constituents or colleagues. Again, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
You as well.
Thank you.